What's up, everybody? Brothers, sisters, psychonauts, and seekers of truth. It is Ananka, and welcome to my bazaar. Today, I have a 7OH trip report for you. The title of this trip report is A Warm Fuzzy Band-Aid for the Mind and Body, and was submitted to Erowid in 2007 by the user Uncle Ben Ben. Now, that's pretty crazy if you guys think about it. 2007, he had access to 7OH, which is only now, within the last year, become popular. So this is some old school stuff right here. But yeah, so written by the user Uncle Ben Ben. And with all that being said, let our story begin. The substance and its source. While talking to a highly reputable entheogen supplier and acquaintance of mine about recent extractions of kava kava and future hopes of performing extractions on kratom leaf, he produced a bottle of an isolated kratom alkaloid, 20 milligrams of 7-hydroxymetragenine dissolved in 10 milliliters of ethanol. From what I understand, very little is known about the effects of the isolated alkaloids of kratom, and the extraction of 7OH from kratom requires some fairly advanced lab procedures, such as column chromatography. I purchased the bottle for $25 and proceeded home. As there is so little information to be found about 7OH, and no previous experiences on Erowid, I will include my limited knowledge of the substance. 7-hydroxymetragenine is a potent partial opioid agonist. Could be a full agonist, but I believe I read something about it acting on the mu opioid receptors specifically. Though content by weight in kratom is quite low compared to other alkaloids, it is currently believed to be one of the most active. Lab tests on rats resulted in strong opiate agonistic effects and seemed to have a stronger analgesic effect in terms of dosage weight than morphine. This fact causes some confusion for prospective users, and just because it is more active by weight does not mean that it feels better or you will get higher. Unlike morphine, 7OH is very orally active. 7OH cannot be made into a hydrochloride salt. Anything sold as 7OH in solid form is likely something else. The source of this substance seems to play a major role in its quality, as suggested doses seem quite high, possibly even dangerous, in retrospect, and the few reports I have read about 7OH attained from online vendors appear exceedingly mild. Subjects: 3 college students, all experienced in a wide variety of psychoactive substances. Myself, male, 125 pounds, 5'11", substances of choice, opiates. L, female, 150 pounds, 5'4", substances of choice, amphetamines and psychedelics. M, male, 135 pounds, 5'5", substances of choice, cocaine and alcohol. Experiments: took the 7OH 2 different times. The first time, we began by looking up as much possible information on dosage as possible. We found almost none, except one suggesting a dosage range of 5 to 15 milligrams, which in retrospect sounds excessive. We had no real accurate way of measuring the dose except for the dropper on the lid of the bottle, so we decided to start at about 3/4 of what the dropper was able to pull into it. The first dose, even though considerably smaller than 5 milligrams, produced immediate effects. Over the course of about 5 hours, we took approximately 4 milligrams, or 2 milliliters each, of 7OH each, by squirting the dropper into our mouth and attempting to hold the rather hot from the alcohol and pharmaceutical tasting liquid for as long as possible before swallowing. We all felt quite relaxed and spent most of the time indoors, except for a short walk Em and I took. Taken in this manner, the substance produced definite and noticeable effects. Almost a minute after taking the 7-OH, I began to feel as if I were coming up on hydrocodone, but it was a much cleaner, more lucid kind of high. At less than a dropperful, there was a warm, rushing, calming kind of sensation, which peaked after about 30 minutes or so. Smoking a bowl seemed to prolong the effects. As we continued to take small doses like these over the course of the night, however, a long term of sedation occurred, and at about 2.5 dropperfuls, Em felt sick, but the feeling subsided after a few minutes. Also, I noticed 7-OH is by far the best aphrodisiac I have ever had. When I came up on this drug, I felt like I was taking nitrous oxide almost. I had the feeling afterward that I had experienced something much closer to a female climax than is usually possible for myself, and have wondered for some time since what men are really missing out on when it comes to pleasure. The second time, after a day off, just Elle and I took the 7-OH. Feeling comfortable with the effects of the drug, we decided to experiment with what more concentrated dosing could yield. Knowing that the come-up on 7-OH can be somewhat intense, we thought it best not to dose up to the desired level all at once, but to space it out over the course of 1.5 to 2 hours, taking 1 dropperful every half hour at first, and then with slightly less time in between, as we became sure we could handle the dose. With this method, we ingested the last 2/5 of the bottle. While I think it may not be for everyone, for Elle and I, this seemed like the best way to go. This method of ingestion produced a long, pleasurable, euphoric but not to the level of full opiate agonists come up, followed by strong physical sedation and analgesia, but with a much more lucid mental state. With this method of dosage, during the sedated period of the high, Elle and I were still euphoric and talking was enjoyable. Summary of effects. All 3 subjects reported that ingestion of small doses of 7-OH, even a dose of less than half a milliliter of the solution, results in an enjoyable rush, similar to coming up on a stronger opiate, which lasts about half an hour and subsides in a relatively short period of time, to a subtle but definitely noticeable calming effect. Though the majority of noticeable effects fade rapidly, further dosing, even after euphoric effects have dissipated, results in another, less noticeable rush, followed by longer-lasting analgesia and mood elevation. Elle and I noticed administration of consecutive small doses of 7-OH, far enough to avoid nausea, with a cumulative dose of approximately 4 milligrams over 1.5 hours, results in a much more pronounced euphoric rush, which continues through the dosing phase and doesn't begin to dissipate until an hour or 2 after the last dose. This higher dose produced definite euphoria, as well as extreme analgesic effects. Movement became difficult, and Elle could barely balance herself. Yet our minds seemed to remain clear and lucid. Mild respiratory depression was present, as well as cardiac stimulation, to a degree uncharacteristic of other opiates. While I can't say that there was a definite hallucinogenic effect, Elle and I both seemed to experience some unusual visual distortions and enhancements in color. However, this could be exaggerated due to a resurgence of previous hallucinogenic experiences, triggered by more mild, moderate visual effects of 7-OH, as Elle and I both experienced some level of persisting hallucination. Despite all these effects, Elle and I had surprising mental clarity and cognitive ability for such a high level of physical sedation / analgesia. The first time taking 7-OH, there were no noticeable effects the next day, except for maybe some apathy and a strong desire to stretch. The second time, there were slight effects the next day, the worst of which being lethargy and some general agitation. Conclusion. From the effects I experienced, my hypothesis would be that 7-OH acts strongly on MU, respiratory depression, euphoria, possible but not unavoidable nausea, analgesia, and sigma, cardiac stimulation, hallucination, opioid receptors. 7-OH is a very pleasant, relaxing alkaloid I wouldn't mind using in the future. It does not seem to be as physically draining or addictive as opiates can be, and though my experiences with 7-OH were quite good, I feel no real need or strong desire to take it again in the near future. Of our 3 subjects, M was the only one who got sick, and the feeling subsided after a short period of time. I believe, though, that there is a danger of overdose similar to that of any opiate, and as sensitivity to 7-OH seems to vary drastically, people just starting out with it should treat carefully. Far beyond the recreational uses of this drug, I believe, are its pharmaceutical applications. For the past few weeks, I have been coping with nerve pain in my left elbow. On the first night I took 7-OH, the pain was rather severe. After taking just the first dose, the pain was noticeably reduced. After another dose, the pain was gone completely, even after the euphoric come-up subsided. When taking the doses more rapidly, the analgesic effects were some of the strongest I've ever experienced. I felt completely disconnected from my sense of touch. On this dose, the never-ending funny bone sensation in my elbow and my entire left arm, for the first time since the injury, almost was funny. The sensation turned from pain into sort of a warm tingling. While on opiates, I have always felt pain was still present, but I was more placid about it. On 7-OH, the pain was simply non-existent. I really feel the medical industry should look into this alkaloid more, as well as individuals with severe pain looking for a less addictive, more effective alternative to pharmas like oxycodone and morphine. All right, everyone. That is the end of our story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Share with us your 7-OH experiences down in the comments below. Check out the other videos and playlists on my channel. And I will see you in the next one, fam. Deuces.